While it can be safe to say that life is always a challenge, I think it's safe to posit that life is very hard right now, perhaps even dangerous to things we believe deeply. That it is in fact dangerous to people we love deeply. The political climate is tumultuous and has caused even everyday activities to become fraught with unpleasantness. In our own little community, people have died, been sick, or injured. People are at risk from financial upheavals of the current times. And regardless of whatever else is going on, every day we get up and have to move through the normal ups and downs of life. I mean, people's children are teenagers, for heaven's sakes. That's a lot to negotiate. And yet we have to. Life doesn't stop because it's hard. We have things to accomplish. We have to stay sane in the midst of it. We have work to do on the resisting and persisting, and we have the important business of love and laughter to be about. I heard the greatest song this week, and the chorus, or the sort of theme was, the first verse was about there are women who are speaking out, and there are women who persist. And then it was talking about all of the places in the world that there have been war, and yet there are men who coexist. And there is stuff that is hard to see, and yet there are angels in our midst. Let us look for the angels in our midst. It's really lovely. In particular, we have love and laughter to be about in the face of this unpleasant, perhaps even dangerous political climate. So what to do? There are some simplistic answers, most of which make me feel a bit like the people on the crosses in the life of Brian, as we all sing, "Let's all look on the bright side of life." Ba-dum, 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 ba. Right? So the efficacy of that as a mantra has never stood up to scrutiny. And there's no sense adding anything else to our lives if it's not going to be effective. I wanted to look at this a bit, and I warn you there's likely to be some more bursting into songs. And I'll expect you on the second line or halfway through, just as we did there. We can change our expectations, as difficult as that is. Not everything is going to go our way. And so what did I hear then for people of my age? We've got to make the best of a bad situation. Right? These are hard times. Change is going to be slow. Sometimes talking to people on the Poor People's Campaign, I get discouraged as we remind ourselves again and again how slow it might be to rally this, to use their words, nonviolent army of the poor. If it were my movement, we would not be using war analogies, but it isn't, and we are. There will be suffering. There is suffering. We cannot wish it away. We're going to have to look closely at the societal ills if we're going to change them. But we cannot allow ourselves to succumb to despair, or we will not be able to move these important causes and these marginalized people to the center of the struggle. We need a steady support. Over the last few months, I've realized how easy it would be to become polarized and angry in my fear. And I look to my clergy colleagues, to those people with whom I attended, and to those people with whom I attended seminary. And while we were at Union, we were all talking about substantive change, liberation theology, and that the right of scriptural interpretation rested with the oppressed. We were fired up. Now I hear too many of them preaching about the virgin birth, and even then forgetting the possibility of miracle, or that the divine response to a demand for a warrior king was, in their tradition, a defenseless baby born to what were barely middle-class parents. No one remembers that in their sacred story, Jesus was not born King of Kings. So what do we do? How do we cope? I started thinking a lot about this as I approached the long solo leg of my journey through the desert. This desert crossing was an interesting metaphor for me, as well as the reality of what was going to happen. I'd crossed the country several times, but never on my own, and always further north. I guess that's not totally true, but I was a bit fearful. You know, you start to get this, what do I do? Am I capable? Can I do this? I mean, it's an automatic car. I've had it checked out, and you put gas in it and you drive, right? How hard is this? But, you know, there's, well, I'm on my own. What if I happen? I have a cell phone. It's always up to date, you know, it's always plugged in. So, but I was fearful, and I find both the desert and the bayou a bit intimidating and also very foreign. And these places, aside from the majesty of the very foreign landscape, the poverty and the alienation were glaringly apparent. It would be easy to make this journey a journey of getting through, getting to the other side. But I wanted to make it a journey of presence. And then someone sent me a link, as people do. No one knows the composer. Dr. Isaiah Maria Barnwell taught it to Elise Witt, and who you then informed me was a buddy of yours, or is a woman you know. Is this true? I think you replied on this, but I might be making that up. It's happened before, right? But she taught it to Elise Witt, who sang it on my little blurb, and Dr. Barnwell learned it from the Reverend James. No, I have his name wrong. Cowan, the Reverend James Cowan, during the Civil Rights movement. When he taught this song, he told the young members of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, "This is the easiest song you'll ever learn." Why? But the hardest song you'll ever sing. And it goes, I love everybody, I love everybody, I love everybody in my heart. I love everybody. I love everybody. I love everybody in my heart. So I wondered how different my trip would be if I started singing, or if I started each day singing the song. What if I sang it when I felt alone or was worried about the route? What if I sang it when I encountered signs of devastation or oppression? What if I made the trip a pilgrimage rather than simply something to hustle through between one part of the country and the journey and the next? What if I looked as consciously as I was able to find the beauty and the love in the people and the things I encountered? I deliberately took no music with me, no books on tape. I lived mostly in silence. It was 5 days, except for this song, with the wide open skies which gave way to the encroaching bayou country. I noticed the wide open skies, the long trains crisscrossing the country. It is amazing to see how many trains there were, and they were everywhere and huge. The places that erected wind turbines and the places that set oil wells just a few yards from their front door. I drove through towns with not a lot in them but joyous announcements that McDonald's was only 45 miles away. Wow. The Poor People's Campaign has given me a new lens, or perhaps sharpened the one I already had, to look at poverty. My summer reading had helped clarify both my thinking and my commitment. And I drove, not trying to love everybody, but working to accept that I did and learning to do it better. I believe that loving everybody is my job. It is my job as a minister. It is my life's journey on this earth. Am I good at it? I try. Do I do it to everyone's satisfaction, even my own? No. Is it challenging to clarify how I love people, which may not be what everyone expects or desires, but is what I am capable of? Why, yes, it is. Will I disappoint myself and others? Why, yes, I will. but it's my journey. I believe it's a necessary journey. And it's certainly the journey that I'm qualified to make. Any other one would be far more arduous, as it's not intrinsically what I do or who I am. I think this is a song of forgiveness. I think the world needs this song. It means loving each person. And it also, if we think about it, it means loving each body, no matter how dissimilar that body is to mine. This is a song of the first principle. I believe if I am to love each person's worth and dignity, I have to work to open my heart. Singing that I do love people means living into that. If that song doesn't work for you, how does the greeting namaste, the divine in me, greets the divine in you? The first part is a demand to live in my best self. The second is acknowledgement of your beauty. I saw the film Mr. Rogers the other day along with a whole bunch of UUs. Is he and his Won't You Be My Neighbor song of the second principle, I wondered? I don't know, it's not my principle, although goodness knows kindness is needed by everyone. But then reading through the words again, I thought perhaps it's more our benediction, or the song we should sing, or it's more the benediction, the song we'll sing to close today's worship. May I be filled with loving kindness. Kindness is not easy. It is a deliberate stance we take. It requires, as the first principle does, truly seeing each person and stepping beyond our comfort zones to welcome someone in. And this sermon isn't about naming a song or a poem or practice or prayer for each principle. It's about my finding and your considering whether you wish to find something that keeps your mind set not on the horrors of this world, but on the hopes. And I will admit this week was a challenge when the horror of what happened to Jamal, I've just lost his last name, Shoshone, came through. I kept glancing sort of over it, by it. I'd read the headlines and not read further. We have to know these things happen. To look away from them is to be in the beginning of the Second World War, and to look away from that, we have to look. But we can't be sort of as they were in Clockwork Orange with our eyes just plastered open and stare and not be in any way softened and help to move. How do we wake up each morning with our minds stayed on freedom? Or if we don't wake up that way, how do we move toward that possibility? You guys know that song. It was originally Jesus, but during the civil rights was changed to woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Having said I wasn't going to do this, it's also, I went like, wait a minute. We could easily just get up and sing the do-re-mi version of the principles and get ready to start our day. Or when we run into something challenging, remember, like, right, one each person. Really, can we do this without the, yeah. But why do this at all? Because repetition lodges things in our bodies. In the book, This Is Your Brain on God, they point out that a 10-minute meditation a day can move a thought from our brainstem to a higher function. If you focused on changing your, I hate that, it's wrong, to this is good, the good in which I participate, for 10 minutes a day for 25 days, you will change your prejudice. They've done studies on hate crimes and people who committed them and worked them through that. And isn't that, in our buddy Micah's words, loving mercy? And why sing or chant, you ask? Because when there's melody and rhythm, things lodge in many different parts of our brains, which strengthens our convictions and our abilities to remember them, for some of us with slightly older brains. But we can quite literally think, pray, recite, sing ourselves into being better people. And from that place, we can more easily do Micah's first imperative, do justice. It's actually a short step from there to walking humbly. If nothing else humbles us, the sheer magnitude of the work to be done will do that. And when combined with the notion that we might play a part, brittle hubris crumbles away. I am convinced that to come through this time and to come through it with any hope for a better world at the end of it, we must be taking small steps toward the world we want and not simply recoiling in horror from the world we have. It is important to stand up and be counted when things are going wrong. But we make the most difference when we move forward on a project, however small. This week, Scott and I spent some time holed up in the conference room trying to get Facebook and Twitter up and going for the shape of justice. I figure we had at least 15 years post-high school between us, and then, of course, a few decades of work experience. And in our time together, we managed to accomplish what a child whose age numbered our total graduate years could have probably set up in half an hour. But we were splendid. But we got there, and when I had someone look it over for me, she only had one little suggestion to make. Yay! But afterwards, as we were working on the verbiage and talking about the shape of justice, I remarked that when I think about this project now, I always think of an OB, which is one of the smaller tampons around, maybe as big around as my index finger and as long as to my second knuckle. And when I think about what we're doing, I see this tiny little thing and think that this tiny little thing is a building block for a new world. And so there were Scott and Anne, tearily looking at the blank space between my fingers and imagining the world changing. Just that little item sends a woman to work or a girl to school. And in a lot of countries, it sends a girl to work and a woman to school. Just that little thing means that there are no more decisions to be made between feeding your child or going to work so you can feed your child the next day. Sometimes the building block of change, as well as the shape of justice, is just a tampon. It's not everything. It's not a livable wage or guaranteed health care or affordable housing, but it makes a difference. Together with the UU Women's Federation, we have begun something really quite extraordinary. And there are so many projects that people can do that are about that are almost that tiny, but have an equally large impact on people's lives. This summer with Sarah, you all talked about what that thing is you want to work on, or may already be working on. I'm asking you to consider what words you need to tell yourself, the song you need to sing yourself, the quiet you need to offer yourself, the prayer you need to pray, so that you might be centered enough, might get out of your way enough to do the work that needs doing, the work you are so qualified to do with the people who need support. When I sing my song, sorry. As I look around, I remember to say thank you to Denise, who's made us fall. Right? But when I sing my song, I can more clearly see the people who might need a hand. I can perhaps be a bit more resilient as I see how my privilege and even my behavior play into someone else's plight. And most importantly, I can also stop worrying about what the other guys are doing and focus on loving everyone. It's so easy to point fingers, but demonizing the other, whether it's the poor for being poor or the privileged for insisting on their poverty, it doesn't help the poor. It leads me to self-righteousness, which is oh so unattractive, and leads those I judge to strike out or to fall down or to double down on what they're doing. And in fact, the ruling class is fairly immaterial in my daily life. They are paying no attention to me or my comrades in action, which is all the better because we can, as a mantra stolen from the Priestley Chapel window says, go about quietly doing good. Too many of us spend time telling ourselves that the job is too big, that we're not up to it, that we're not capable. When we say those things, we stop being responsible for doing what we want in the world. What if we quite literally changed our tune to something more positive, more hopeful, more inclusive? What might we do if we were freed up to go about doing good simply because we chose to tell ourselves that we could? Me? I'll keep on singing. I'll keep on reminding myself that I love everybody, not trying to love, but loving. Trying doesn't get us where we need to go. And as one who should be a UU patriarch reminds us, do or do not. There is no try. Blessed be.